Hello again, it's Locknoob, and one of my more recent videos about this pocket locksmith concept that I made has really, it's really got lots of views, at least from my channel that is, and loads of questions about it, and lots of people kind of saying, where can I buy it, and when will it be out, and those kind of things. And the truth is that I don't think this will ever really see a commercial light of day. Very least not in this guise. This really was just a proof of concept, just for me to try something out, to maybe just show others what can be done. Yeah, I mean, of course, God, who wouldn't like to have something of theirs sort of made commercially available? But not everything that you do sort of has to be taken up. It doesn't, some things just don't go anywhere. Sometimes though, if you've got to do things for the pleasure of doing it. And this concept, by the way, is it's original in some regards, but people have been modding multi-tools and pocket knives and things like that for some time, definitely to usually just make like pocket pick sets and things, little everyday carries. I guess the only thing which is more novel about this is the concept is entirely around the idea about having followers, tweezers, circlip removal tools, and all those other little bits and bobs as well. It really is a disassembly kit and a reassembly kit, as well as a pick set. I think that's where the novelty is. But just because you can't buy one of these, it doesn't mean that you can't make one. I just thought I'd cover some of the basics around this, how it all comes together, and how you can think about your own design in the future. I'd really like to have a go at making one of these. So the hardest thing for me in terms of this concept was to think about how we incorporate these followers. And I bought a couple of cheaper bodies to have a look, because I was really keen on having pliers. I find them very useful for putting back circlips and doing lots of other things. So I really wanted some pliers involved. But if you look at these ones here, where the tools are on the inside next to the pliers have to fold in over the top of some of the other tools, and you can see that these are sort of skeletonized, very thin tools which can just slip under the nose of the pliers. So you can see how it folds down under there. Now that isn't very good if you're trying to get some picks and other tools in there. It just takes up too much space. That doesn't mean, however, if you didn't buy one of these, you can get this one, I think, for £5 on eBay in the UK, and no doubt you get similar ones in the US. But there's no reason why you can't grind these down into picks themselves. They're usually made of a reasonable-ish stainless. They're not going to be the strongest or the longest picks, but if you wanted to just take something like this, all of these can be taken out and unscrewed. You can put in your own stuff, you can take things out, you can add things in. And so, just think about what could you do. You could, if you had a pillar drill and some decent steel, you could sort of just, get some of that in the thicknesses you want, drill holes through, throw them in here instead of the ones that come in, and then you just use the body, this sort of skeletonized body. And then you can really put in whatever you like. However, because I wanted to put followers in here, you can imagine if I put a follower down there, and that is maybe just about long enough, it clearly won't close up with the nose. So if you were thinking about adding followers, you really want to have the configuration where the tools are on the outside and the nose of the pliers falls on the inside. But there's nothing wrong with using something like this. You could definitely get a few picks out of this, as well as the little knives and things. It could just be a useful little thing. And this one actually comes in a little pouch as well, so you can throw some tension tools in here. So for £5, about $6, you can just get something really cheap. Grind down the tools which are already in there, make a couple of quick picks. It's not bad. Another one I found was this. This is about £3, I think, delivered. I mean, this is not a good tool. You certainly can't. You'd have to drill out these sort of rivets if you wanted to make your own tools in there. But what I liked about this was that the tools were on the outside. So the nose of the pliers folds onto the inside. It was quite compact, and it did have a little torch. there you go. I did consider if there was room, I could put a piece of tubing over the torch, and it would hold in a very short follower. There wasn't quite enough room in here. I suppose I could grind away at the body a bit, but overall I felt that this little cheap one didn't give me quite the functionality. I'd have had to have drilled out these and then put in some like furniture bolts or sex bolts, I think they're called, through here to hold them still. But nevertheless, you can imagine that there's room at the top for a couple of tools, maybe you know, keep the screwdriver, add a couple of picks in here. So something like this, you know, something really cheap, but you can just see how you could easily grind these down into individual picks, or add, again, you know, drill through some better steel with the same profile at the back so that they can snap and lock. Throw those in instead, and then you could quite easily use a cheap body like this and then modify it, even spray paint it until it looks like really cool. I mean, this is like £3, about what, $3.50. That means nothing. So if you had a little bit of time, you could easily make something kind of cool, just a hold on keychain for next to nothing. Let me show you what I mean by the follower idea here. It had legs, but it didn't quite work out. Like I said, I'd probably need to grind the body away, but I was hoping to kind of slide the torch down a thicker tube, but the aluminium tubing I had, and I chose aluminium because it was light, was just a little thick on the inside. Anyway, you know, it's just going around the ideas in your head about what you can and can't do. Do you want just some picks, in which case these tools are perfect for just modifying to your own ends. If you want to have like followers and shims and tweezers, then you probably need something a bit bigger. The problem being, of course, is there are compromises when you do that, in that it is a bit bulkier. It is actually quite easy to pick with these pick tips. You wouldn't think it would be, but one of the things which has improved the feel is I've added some bigger knurled knobs so that you can make it really tight, and you know, and actually it's not as bad as you'd think. It's not brilliant, but it's not bad. It is a compromise, of course, because you've got such a large tool, but this is meant to be one of those everyday carry emergency type things, not a substitute for a decent pick kit, of course. Interestingly, a few of you had mentioned in the comments about the knife being something which you didn't want for various reasons, which is odd in some ways, because the knives come with all the multi-tools. I don't think there's a multi-tool which doesn't have a knife, but don't worry, the way that I built this, of course, these can be unscrewed, and what I did is I just bought some of these little knurled thumb screws. There you go, pretty easy. And I'll just use those to there you go. And you can see how I could just pull that out, slip this knife off, and then add, well, whatever I want in its place. I could just add a washer and have it as a blank space. I could use some of the tools which were in here if I like those. So I think there's like a little I don't know what it's called, like a oh, come on, Loch Noob, get your head straight. Like a ruler and a file. You know, you can put whatever you like in there. You know, all of this just releases so simply just by you know, pulling this out. You put in your new stuff and then screw it back on. So, and that what I quite like about these larger knurled knobs is that they can be tightened quite tight, and because they're quite wide, they don't damage the plastic body. If you look at this, it's a metal frame with a plastic grips. That actually makes it relatively light. It isn't light, but it makes it relatively light. So, what about these tools? How did I make the tools in here? So, these were all made from feeler gauge. Now, what's interesting about that is that the feeler gauge I got was like a fan feeler gauge, and here it is. And because it actually comes on a this isn't actually the one it comes in, but it comes on like a little axle for these to rotate around. They already have holes pre-drilled, and that hole is, I think, roughly M5. You can run a needle file down if it's a little bit too tight. But that means I didn't actually have to do any drilling through hardened or carbonized or high carbon steel, which was fantastic just for this proof of concept. And so this one was, I think it was about £15. It was 0.05 to 2 millimeters, so it's like really, it goes all the way up in thicknesses. Plenty of different good thicknesses for picks, from about 18, well, probably about 16 thousandths to 32 thousandths, depending on what type of pick you want to make. And same with the circlip removal tool. I just use, I think it's a 40 thousandths or 50 thousandths. Yeah, probably 50 thousandths, I think. Let's have a look. No, it's a 40 thousandths. So I use a 40 thousandths feeler on this one. And all of these were made with a Dremel tool. All right, I just ground down all the profiles by eye. It didn't take too long, probably about 15 minutes a pick, maybe. And this one probably took about 30 minutes because hand cutting circles is just hard work. In terms of other ideas, well, if you had some kind of like, these aren't Mad Bobs, don't worry, but if you had some sort of cheap picks that you didn't mind cutting up, well, maybe you could, can you see where I'm going here? Maybe you could just modify those, chop them off, throw them in. Yeah, you might need to use a thinner screw or just drill these holes out a bit wider. They're probably M3 as opposed to the M5 I think I used there. But either way, it doesn't really matter. Can you see where I'm going? If you wanted to throw these in, you probably could do. And they would work just fine. It would save you having to do all that work. So, and these aren't very expensive. What else have I got? Well, I've also got some tension tools at the back. And these were just made using some, I think, the spring stainless you get in wiper blades. This is a truck wiper blade, I think. This is just a wiper blade insert that goes on the inside of the wiper blades, keeps them pushed against your windscreen. And it's made of like a relatively low grade stainless, but it's still stainless steel. It's quite strong and perfect for tension tools. So again, all you need to do is just bend it. Just put a bend in it with a pair of pliers. As long as the angle's not too tight, then it shouldn't snap on you. So really, that only leaves us, I think, the tweezers and the followers. So the followers, you probably saw that tube earlier, is just made from two different thicknesses of the aluminium tube. There you go. And one is 12 mils and 1 meters, and this one is 10 millimeters. If you can get 1/4 inch tubing, and by the way, I would only recommend really brass and aluminium. Steel would just be sort of too heavy, but you want somewhere between 0.5 millimeter and 1 millimeter wall thickness. You want to make sure that this tube fits inside this tube. This is perfectly good, but like I said, 1/4 inch or 12.5 millimeter is slightly better for most locks. But 12 millimeters is absolutely fine otherwise. And I'd definitely stick with 10 millimeter, which is really easy to get hold of for this smaller follower. You can always run some 800 grit wet and dry paper up and down these to make them a bit nicer and a bit smooth to go stacking in on each other. So once I cut them to length, and of course I don't know what the length is, I just cut it so it fits in here. I used, and most of these tools have them, I use this natural little spring which is used to lock the tools in place. So if you used to get the knife, for example, and bring it round, you'll see that it's got a little notch here, and that interacts with the spring, and the spring like holds it in. I've got this knurled knob so I can tighten it even further, so you're less likely to have that slip out on you. What I did on the other side is I used that spring here as a way to force this tool back out. Also, this cutout where it engages here, that is very useful for when you're actually using the follower, especially where the last pin at the back is really close to the end of the lock, and you just need to get the most of the follower in. Then you can use the follower just as normal, using these notches for the first pin at the back. Anyway, look, you can see they fit in with each other really nicely. And what happens here is you'll see that when I engage it at the back, it looks like it's too long, and it is. But if you push it, you'll see as it pushes against, can you see that spring move? And if you just push it enough, it should just clip in. And I carved a little hole on the other end, just there. One, to get your finger under so you can pull it out, and two, so it engages with this part of the fixings and keeps it locked in. So locked in, of course, you can slide these pliers down and it doesn't like just pull it out. It just, if anything, just keeps it all jammed in a bit better. So I think that really covers it. You don't need a lot. There's a few tips there. You know, these things can be bought in loads of different finishes: chrome, stainless, zinc, brass, from eBay. They're just nil thumb screws. You might like the plastic one that was on here originally, and actually that plastic one came on the original fitting on this. I actually took the original fitting from this and used it in this. Made sense since I was using the blanks, well, these feeler gauges anyway, as the blanks of the picks and the circuit remover. So I was a bit fortunate there that this and this married up so well. So yeah, you can just get yourself some feeler gauge stock and make your own picks. Just use a Dremel or a grinder, and that shouldn't take too long. Like I said, if you have some cheap blanks which already have pre-drilled holes and it fits, then, you know, again, you're onto a winner. That's a great idea. Getting hold of you know, brass or aluminium tubing is just really, really easy, and so is some wiper blade inserts. You can probably get them from a scrapyard, a friendly mechanic. You know, when you change your own wiper blades, and that makes you tension tools. And of course, getting the bodies. You know, this one here I think was £10 on Amazon.co.uk. I've seen them on eBay in the UK. I'm sure there are equivalents in the US, because I'm pretty certain these are actually made in China, so they should be globally available. And yeah, and your choice of bodies gives you so many options as to what you want. Do you just want a couple of picks and a tension tool? Brilliant, throw them in. You know, do you want to get a bit fancier and start utilising torches and followers? Well, yeah, you can do that too. Just you know, choose the right body, get some material to make some extra picks and to get some thumb turns, and just go for it. Honestly, just go for it. The world, you know, your imagination is really the only thing holding you back. You know, because none of this is particularly expensive. It just takes a little bit of time, maybe a bit of forethought. And as long as you do it safely, please do whatever you are going to do safely. You're just going to have a cracking time making it, and you'll get something out of it which you'll be really proud of. Anyway, that's enough of me whistling on. I hope some of you found that useful. I just wanted to respond to some of the comments of people saying, you know, how do you make it? Could show me how you made it. How can I make one myself? All those comments. And yeah, I've been whittling on for like 18 minutes now. But hopefully you've had some ideas. Hopefully you've been inspired to have a go at safely making one yourself. And yeah, I'd love to hear your stories if you do try. Okay, I'll see you all next time.